So most people give up on their fat loss journey before they've even really started. And this hinders their physique potential long term because they don't get lean enough to then start a worthwhile muscle building phase after that. I put 5 kilos in the title because more or less in my many years of doing this, the average person who starts a fat loss phase needs to lose at least double that, 10 kilos, to make any sort of meaningful change in their body composition. If you're thinking, Christ, that's high, I'm going to explain to you why that's not high later on in the video, and to set themselves up for a productive muscle building phase after the fat loss phase. So why do most people not see it through until the end? Well, the first few kilos are always the easiest, especially the first 1 or 2. A little bit like doing a marathon. Miles 1 to 5 are going to be a complete breeze when you're fresh and ready to go. You've just started, you have full energy, and you have no fatigue. Compare that to miles 20 to 26 right at the end, when you've already been running for hours and probably the most fatigued you've ever been, wondering how on earth you're even going to finish. So to lose that first little bit of weight, I mean, you could just skip dinner one day, drink a ton of water instead, get a good night's sleep, hop on the scale the next morning, and you could easily be a kilo down, maybe even more. You can actually try that tonight and see how you get on. And following that, the next 2 kilos could just be done in a 24-hour period, from Monday morning until Wednesday morning. It could even be just losing the extra weight you put on from the weekend before. A couple of low-calorie days and voila. Just doing those 2 really straightforward steps could net you 3 kilos of weight loss from pretty much minimal effort. Because the first bit of weight loss is usually less food in your stomach and less water on your body, with a little bit of body fat thrown in there for good measure. And once those things have settled down and you're 8 weeks into your fat loss phase, it gets a lot harder to lose that same 2 or 3 kilos. Hell, even half a kilo, because you have a lot less body fat to lose at week 8. In the past, I've literally dieted hard for 2 weeks straight towards the end of a fat loss phase and not lost any scale weight at all. Despite suffering with hunger, constantly thinking about food, low energy, trust me, it was difficult. And we all underestimate how much body fat we have to lose in the first place. Even I fall into this trap when I start a diet. With all my experience and knowledge, still to this day, in my head, I think I need to lose 4 or 5 kilos to be completely shredded. And the reality is, I probably need to lose a little bit more than that still, to get into the kind of condition that I want. And if I were to start a fat loss phase today, I would probably realize that in a few weeks, that I needed to lose a little bit more. Because I would lose that first few kilos and look more or less the same. And that's mainly because we lose fat from everywhere. Visceral and subcutaneous, from our hands and feet, from our head and ankles, literally every part of our body, even parts around the organs that you can't see. I've actually had a client drop a whole shoe size because they lost so much body fat. And this happens quite a lot, especially when significant amounts are involved. Because mainly we want to lose fat for aesthetic reasons. We are usually fixated on the parts of the body that we can see in the mirror and that we can see when we're wearing clothes. Arms, torso, legs, face, stomach, things like that. So you might need to lose a lot of fat overall for your preferred body parts to look significantly different. So maybe for every 1 kilogram of body weight we lose, a third of that, so 300 grams, could be allocated to the body parts that we want to look leaner. These aren't researched or verified figures, by the way. I'm just making a point here. So not a lot, because we can't control where we lose body fat from. Our body does that where it sees fit. It's created a complex system from hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, and there's nothing that we can do to override that. And what's needed to drop the first 5 kilos of body fat is completely different to what you need to lose the next 5 kilos of body fat. Going back to the marathon analogy, anyone who is able-bodied enough is going to be able to run or walk the first 5 miles, right? It might take them a few hours if they're not fit and prepared, sure, but they'd still be able to do it, no problem. But not everyone is going to be able to do the last 5 miles of the marathon. Only a tiny percentage can. And honestly, not even I could be able to finish the last 5 miles of a marathon. And that's exactly like a fat loss phase. Everyone can diet for a week. It doesn't require much effort or sacrifice. People in their millions do this all the time, every week. It's 168 hours. 56 of those hours are spent asleep. So the start is really easy mode. It has a non-existent barrier to entry. But the end of a fat loss phase, from halfway right up until the finish, is hard mode. Real tough. It requires a lot more sacrifice, a lot more determination, and honestly a lot more effort. Pretty much you need to give more of everything to lose that extra kilo. The only plus side of this, which is going to make it easier than the first 5 kilos, is you have extra momentum. You've got more of that at week 6 compared to you at day 1. you're in the zone, you're locked into a routine, you've had some success previously, so you can use that to spur you on for success in the future. But just on the flip side of that, we as humans can also become victims of our own success. Because unlike the example I just used, where you can use that built up momentum to your advantage, sometimes after we lose those first few kilos, we get excited. We can see our body changing a little bit, and then we just can't help ourselves but to take our foot off the gas pedal because we're doing so well. Think about it like this. How many times do we allow ourselves a weekend off after we've had a really good and successful week on our diet and training? The answer is a lot. You've worked really hard Monday to Friday, you've done all your training sessions, you've made all the sacrifices, so you allow yourself a weekend off. And that's the reality for most. And fast forward a little bit, say you've lost those first 5 kg, because remember, we think that's all we have to lose anyway. We just pack it in and end the job, when in fact the job is only 50% done. Wow, as a personal trainer, I see this just all the time. My suggestion is you should do the opposite of quitting while you're ahead. And when you do find yourself ahead and killing it with a fat loss, keep going until you've properly finished the job. I hope you found this video helpful. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.